ちょっとシキ。
いいから。
足りなかったから複製しただけでしょ。
Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for the one, the only, Arcueid Brunestud. Technically, the character is listed as Archetype Earth, but unless you're a bathroom-dwelling melty head, you're not gonna have any idea who that is, so I'll just keep calling her Arcueid. Both are right, since this Arcueid is kind of a Mao Nobu situation, where you have multiple SKUs of the same character packed into a single servant. Arcueid is a limited 5-star Moon Cancer and our anniversary servant. To date on JP, she's had only one dedicated banner, this first one. Otherwise, you're stuck fishing in GSSRs. So knowing that you only have one real shot at her, let's find out if Arcueid is worth the trouble. Her first skill is Rainbow Mystic Eyes. I'm recording this before her NA release, so names are tentative. This is an AoE, a single turn skill seal, and 3-turn defense reduction. It also raises her attack for 3 turns, and its cooldown is short enough to double stack with a bit of help. Next is Breath of the Planet. This is a 100% battery at level 10, and it comes with a 3-turn NP damage buff. This is the secret sauce. While 100% batteries aren't a new thing, they've historically been restricted to casters like Nitocris. Having one on an AoE buster attacker is unprecedented. The 7-turn cooldown might look too long to combo with Koyanskaya of Light, but it works out because you're using it right away. This lets you exploit 2 turns of his natural cooldown on top of your cheats. I'll explain the details and drawbacks once we establish Arcueid's fundamentals. The last of Arcueid's active skills is Funny Vamp. This is a single-hit party invulnerability with 2 conditional buffs. The first is Purge Resistance for good aligned allies. This includes her. This is quite interesting and not normally something you get party-wide. There are some catches though. To start, Arcueid is a fairly selfish servant and not someone you run just to support. So odds are you're stuck with her as your attacker for whatever fight you want to do this trick on. The other caveat is that while there are many strong, good aligned servants, Koyan and Oberon are both evil. This doesn't mean you're out of luck, but capitalizing on this requires you to consider exactly what kind of team you're trying to run. Letting your evil aligned servants get wiped out can help you funnel more rocket fuel onto Arcueid by keeping more supports in your backline. For a face race strategy, that can work out. Otherwise, you need to abandon pretensions of looping against the boss in question and play for the long game. Here's some good aligned allies that stood out to me. Merlin provides healing and continuous charge, Mash gives defense, Nightingale is a backup secondary attacker, Himiko over buster crit support, and Constantine… well, wait a few years before you take him along. The last part of Funny Vamp gives Arcueid's frontline buddies a 30% charge, but only if her special terrain is up. Speaking of which, Arcueid's Noble Phantasm is Marble Phantasm. This is an AoE buster attack that preemptively transforms the battlefield into the Millennium Castle. There's a lot to unpack with this NP, so let's start with that. Unlike other terrain effects, the Millennium Castle applies itself to the map and not Arcueid. This means it can't be purged. It physically changes the battlefield, but this is purely cosmetic and doesn't actually indicate whether it's active or not. You have to look at the top right corner and you'll see this icon. When you move between waves or do certain story fights, the castle itself won't appear, but you don't have to worry about that. Arcueid has a large number of high-ranked passives including debuff resistance, arts performance, and crit damage. But what takes the cake is Ultimate One. This is a special rainbow buff that activates whenever the Millennium Castle is present. The magnitudes of these buffs are on the level of actual skills, 30% for each category. EX level skills in each card type normally cap out at 12%. It's a remarkably good deal. And things get crazier. Marble Phantasm has anti-chaotic damage. For most servants, this would either be a fixed magnitude or an overcharge effect, but Arcueid has hers tied to NP level. The range goes up from 150% at NP1 to 200% at NP5. But the point is that her damage against chaotic enemies spikes up dramatically with her NP level because of this double dip. For example, here's a recent encounter I had from the Chaldea Summer Adventure rerun. They added a 90++ node culminating in an absolutely massive Setonai. Arcueid fucking destroys her. And remember, Moon Cancer vs Alter Ego is a neutral matchup. Admittedly, this example is a bit skewed since Ocean Flyer gives an event damage bonus, but Summer Adventure is a weird event where 6 slotting isn't terribly important, so I could get away with it. You know what else is chaotic? Most Avengers. So on top of that special damage, you get class advantage. While Avengers are rare enemies to encounter in normal gameplay, they pop up in some pretty opportune places. There is, in fact, an entire story chapter dedicated to them, and aside from a few battles with onerous gimmicks, Arcueid can sweep through the second ordeal call with relative ease. The last part of Marble Phantasm is its overcharge effect. This is a battery for living human allies, starting at 20%. For whatever reason, this part specifies that it doesn't work on Arcueid, who isn't a living human by virtue of the fact that she's not human. True ancestor. Funny how that works. Living humans aren't a part of your typical Arcueid loop, but you do have some notable figures on that list, including Mash, which might come in handy for the grinder setup. Aside from her, you have Reynes, Waver, Aoko Aozaki, and Summer Chloe. Now that we have a solid grasp on what Arcueid is capable of, we can get to our usual shenanigans. Her bread and butter is the double Koyan Buster Loop. Arcueid's 100% battery puts her in a very special class of Buster Looper, one that can freely pick her own craft essence. In normal situations, you'd ideally be running Black Grail to maximize your NP damage. How you play it is that you pop Arcueid's battery on turn 1 along with Rainbow Mystic Eyes and your offensive Koyan buffs, double charge her with your Koyan Skies on turn 2, and then use the Atlas Mystic Coat's cooldown reduction to get both Rainbow Mystic Eyes and Breath of the Planet again on turn 3. It's a very convenient setup and lets you ignore most enemy arrangements in standard play. During events, you can even run something to increase your drop bonus or even an event damage CE if you're operating on a shoestring budget. The catch is that while you can pick any CE you want while also looping, you can't do both of those things and use an Oberon swap at the same time. Which is a real shame because Black Rail plus double Koyan single Oberon would be the single most powerful combo for an NP-centric servant like Arcueid. That 7th turn of cooldown on Breath of the Planet is the culprit, it just won't be up in time. But if your CE has starting charge, you can use Oberon. Generically, first day of filming would fill this role, but some events throw you a bone too. One example is Ilia's Castle, in which the Lotto currency craft essence has 30% charge on a basic copy. Getting limit broken copies takes time and luck, so you don't want to be relying on that for the missing 20%. You could frontline Oberon and have him pick up the slack, but once you're done with any overgrailing, I would just unlock and level Arcueid's charge append instead. I'll be demoing a run with that arrangement, but you can adapt as needed. The cooldown reduction is a lot less important for this setup. On turn 1, you pop Rainbow Mystic Eyes and follow up with one of your Koyan batteries and all of their offensive buffs for your first Marble Phantasm. On turn 2, you use Arcueid's battery and go in again immediately. You also have the option of swapping your depleted Koyan out for Oberon and using his first skill for extra damage. On turn 3, you use your other Koyan's battery and do the swap if you haven't already. Use all of Oberon's skills, your Mystic Coat's NP damage buff, another round of Rainbow Mystic Eyes, and then complete your loop. It might seem like a lot of steps just to run a single core team, but Arcueid's ability to situationally 6-slot and ignore enemy compositions means that the damage check becomes your main consideration. This is where we get to Arcueid's big ask. Her damage isn't all that impressive by default, certainly not at NP1. Her raw damage isn't actually bad for an extra class looper, but she only gets class advantage against Berserkers and Avengers. Outside of those classes, and unless you're fighting something chaotic, you're going to feel that lower damage. Being able to run Black Rail compensates to an extent, but you'll be looking for more persistent solutions too, ones that let you free up that all-important CE slot. Gold foes are a good place to start, letting you pad her attack stat. Along that same reasoning, you'll want to commit some grails. Getting Arcueid to 120 has value beyond waifu flexing, and there are times where I've really pushed my luck and only scraped by because my Arcueid was maxed out. So if you're willing to make Arcueid your main attacker, get ready to go all in. The other, more onerous path to power is to roll more copies and level her Noble Phantasm. Given that Arcueid has only one real banner to date, this puts an immense pressure on our dear Suki friends to cough up the cash. That's the ugly reality of using Arcueid. She's very much a whale's servant. There are a few low econ tricks you can do, which I'll get into with the Poor Friend guide, but to be completely frank, my recommended NP level is 5. At NP1, you have a very pretty potato. In between, you might see okay results, but you will feel her limitations. At the very least, you're going to want NP2. If you're mainly considering Arcueid for meta purposes, I'd look towards our upcoming crop of Summer Servants instead. But as a massive Arcueid friend, I went the distance, so I've been able to play around with a 120 NP5 Arcueid for quite some time. I'll say she's got her upsides. She's a great pick for whenever I'm slacking off and just need to churn through irregular content. Trash fights in the main quest, event story battles, and most free quests below the 90++ level. If you don't want to worry about enemy formations or most class interactions, you can throw Arcueid at the problem and things will generally work themselves out. Then pivot into more specialized setups once you reach the high-end stages. And when the stars align and you get to run starting charge and fight a chaotic boss, she can wade into 90++ waters. This video's getting long, so let's pick this back up some other time. Free-to-play guide and servant story in the works, though I might hit up some of the other anniversary subjects before circling back to them. Depending on when you're watching this, I might be rolling for Arcueid. I usually do my heavy gacha on Sundays, assuming there's a new banner up. Twitch.tv/Finotaisen. Friday through Sunday is my normal stream arrangement, though you'll see me around on Wednesdays too. But with that said, see you next time.